In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. Where are you? The prophet Isaiah is expressing the voices of the people of Israel. These people are confused, they're disappointed. The temple's been destroyed. The majority of the Israelites have been taken into captivity in Babylon. They had assurances from the prophet Isaiah that they would be delivered, that Jerusalem would be rebuilt. But this did not happen yet, and they were frustrated. They were agitated. They were impatient. They were mad. Where are you? Come, make things right. Isaiah reports them saying, oh, that you would tear open the heavens and come down. Make your name known to your adversaries. Do something, do something. There's chaos, there's famine, there's ruin. The people are saying enough. You've had enough of your punishment. And our reading is more interesting. Speaking through Isaiah, they seem to take God to task. They say, first of all, you meet those gladly who do right, those who remember you in your ways. So far, so good. And in contrast to this, they freely admit their sins. We have all become like one who is unclean. But it's the next part of verse 5 where things get more interesting. They admit to their sins, but they seem to blame God for the fact that they have sinned. Just listen. They say, but you were angry, and we sinned. So they seem to be saying that God was angry, and therefore they sinned. Listen more. Because you hid yourself, we transgressed. So they're blaming God for their sins. God has hidden from them in their minds, and therefore they have sinned. Furthermore, they're saying that they seem to have had no choice in the matter. They say, there's no one who calls on your name or attempts to take a hold of you, for you have hidden your face from us and have delivered us into the hand of our iniquity. So let's pause here. That's quite an accusation. The people are saying that God is hiding from them, and therefore they have no choice but to sin. Things are terrible. No one's even trying to call on God because God is hiding, so they think. Is this some kind of a cruel joke? God, where are you? It's a frightening picture. Has God truly abandoned His chosen people? What's going on? Could it be true that God has made a decision to hide from His people, knowing full well that this would lead them to sin? Would that be the work of a just God or a righteous God? Or maybe there's another way to understand this scenario, another explanation. To those who do not gladly do right, to those who do not remember God and His ways, God will seem to not be present. But is that really the case? Is God not present? Is God really hiding? Or is it more like those who do not gladly do right and remember God's ways are so stuck in living lives centered on themselves that they can't see God? Throughout the Bible, God is always described as light. When God seems to be hidden, it is not because He is in darkness. This is not possible. God cannot be light and darkness at the same time. In fact, it is the overwhelming brightness of His light which makes Him difficult to actually see. We're blinded by this light. When we stray from God's ways and when we enter the darkness of sin, it's the darkness which makes it impossible to be with God, to be led by God, and therefore we sin all the more. We're turned inward. Remember, that's Luther's definition of sin, right? Turning inward to ourselves. And consequently, we are then turned away from God. So our perception of God hiding from us in reality is caused, it's brought about by our turning away from God. The perception of God's hiddenness is a consequence of our sin. It is not God's doing. So the Israelites blame God for their sins and they call out to God, "Where are you?" But I think a more realistic understanding of this scenario would be involving God calling out to them, "Where are you?" So let's think about our own lives now. These three words, where are you? Who's speaking them? Are we calling out to God, "Where are you?" Or is God calling us, "Where are you?" I'm sure that each of us has had times in our lives when things are not going so well, either for us or for a family member or a loved one. Problems. Maybe there were health issues, maybe economic issues. Maybe there were problems with a relationship or a career path that seemed stalled or in question. Maybe there was a tragedy. We become confused and impatient and frustrated and anxious. We become angry. This is not fair. God, where are you? We think we know everything that there is to know about our situation, and we can't understand the injustice that we're facing. God is hiding. God has abandoned us, and we feel hopeless. But are we seeing the picture clearly? Maybe we aren't looking for God in the right places. God, where are you? In last week's gospel reading, Jesus told us where to find him. He is with the least of us, not the greatest of us. He's with the sick. He's with the poor. He's with the lonely. He's with those who are in prison, who are homebound and can't come to worship with us. When we come out of our self-imposed shells of serving ourselves, of being turned inward, and then we focus on the wounds of others, that's where we find God. We're called at all times to serve others and to help our neighbor. We're called especially at this time, the beginning of Advent, to stop and take a look at ourselves. Are we as aware of God in our lives as we could be? Or are we calling out to God, "Where are you?" Well, I want each of us right now to stop and hear God, because God is calling each and every one of us right now, today. Where are you? Now, you might say, "Well, okay, what do I do? How do I change my behavior?" Or you might say, "I have been suffering. I'm not turning inward to sin. I am hurting and I cannot see God. What am I supposed to do?" Well, Paul, in his letter to the Corinthians, raises an answer to this. He says that the grace of God has been given in Christ Jesus, and that we who have faith have been enriched by him in speech and knowledge of every kind, so that we are not lacking in any spiritual gift as we wait for the revealing of our Lord Jesus Christ. And it's that last part that I want to emphasize. We are waiting for the full revealing of our Lord Jesus Christ. And while we're waiting, Paul offers us good news, that God will strengthen us to the end. God is faithful. By him we are called into the fellowship of his Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. God is not hiding. God is faithful. And we are called into fellowship with his Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. So as we begin Advent, let's stop, and instead of calling out to God, "Where are you?" let us hear the cry of God calling us, "Where are you?" And let us answer, "Here I am." Here we are. Guide us from our darkness into your promised light. And let us then be strengthened to rejoice. Rejoice in the promise that Emmanuel shall indeed come to us. for this promise, let us give thanks to God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.